I'm Lindsay O'Rourke, and I'm the Training Program Coordinator with Safe States Alliance. Each month, we're bringing you our Inspire and Ignite training series. This month, we're focused on burnout. You are watching part 1, where 2 experts on navigating burnout will give you tools and resources for navigating something that we know impacts so many injury and violence prevention professionals. Once you've watched the video, fill out our survey using the QR code to tell us what you thought and what you want to learn more about. And then register for the Ignite conversation on March 27th to join our experts and other practitioners for a peer-led discussion. Hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Building Resilience with Resources for Resilience. I am DuPre Rogers. I'm the director here at RFR, Resources for Resilience. We are based in Asheville, North Carolina, but we provide trainings and workshops all across the state and beyond. And I'm thrilled to be able to present this video to you all today. What we will do today is briefly talk about how stress affects us from a nervous system perspective, learn a little bit about how our brain works when we're feeling overwhelmed, learn a few simple tools we can use in the moment to help feel better when things are hard, tools that we can use on ourselves, and tools that we can easily use with other people that we are supporting when they're having a hard time. Simple strategies to help build our resilience so that we can experience better days. So to start with, just ask yourself or answer some of these questions. Have you ever been so mad that you couldn't think straight? Or endlessly scrolled on your phone when you were overwhelmed? So knowing there's a million things to do and somehow you've managed to be just scrolling endlessly for a long time, right? Kind of checking out. Have you ever felt so nervous that you felt like your heart was beating out of your chest? Or seen somebody else just really check out during a hard situation? If you raised your hand to any of these, you are not alone. Most of us have had these kinds of experiences. Same kind of questions, but a little bit different. Have you ever had days where you were able to show up and just be sort of the best version of yourself? Even when things were hard and stressful, you were just handling it. You were on top of your game. You were feeling good. You were connecting with people, just able to show up really well. Have you had days like that? Days where you were able to stay solid and grounded and settled even during a tough time? Ever had the experience where you noticed things were just feeling like they were just going right, like life is good? Those moments, those experiences. Or had days where you saw somebody else just really showing up at the top of their game, even in the midst of hard things? So hopefully, yes to a lot of those as well. So let's take a closer look at what's going on here. So one thing we know is stress is a whole body experience. We have thoughts and emotions when we're stressed, but we also feel it in our bodies. And we can think about, where do we feel it? What are some of the signals we get from our bodies that we're feeling stress? Headache, tight neck, clenched jaw, nervous stomach, whatever it is, right? The reason for this is our nervous system runs through our whole body, right? It's not just our brain. Our nervous system runs through our whole body. So when we feel stress, we often feel it in different places in our body. It's an embodied experience, stress. and it affects how we feel. Our nervous system's job is to send messages from our brain to our body about what we need to do to keep ourselves safe. If we feel a threat, kind of how to respond. If we touch something hot, to pull our hand back. That's our nervous system doing what it does, and it's all throughout our body. But it also includes our brain. We're going to look at our brain a little bit here right now. So hold your hand up, close your thumb into your hand, and wrap your fingers around your thumb and see how that kind of looks like a brain. A little smaller than my actual brain, but kind of the same shape, and it kind of lines up with this image on the screen. This comes from the work of Dan Siegel, Paul McLean, coined this way of teaching brain science using the hand. Bruce Perry taught it like this. Dan Siegel said if we turn it around, we can do this neat little trick with it. So hand-brain model. We teach basic brain science even to young children. People love learning about how their brain works, and we believe everybody should have access to this information, this public health approach to understanding how our brains and bodies work, understanding how stress affects us, and then learning ways to help get through stressful times. So survival brain down at the bottom, emotional brain there in the middle, and thinking brain on top. So our thinking brain, which would be up here, tells us how to operate from kind of executive function place, critical thinking, planning, problem solving, creativity, communication, expressive and receptive language, reading, writing, math, all that is thinking brain, right? Planning, problem solving, and working things out. That's our thinking brain. And that is this part up here. So my fingers would be the thinking brain. Emotional brain in the middle, where our emotions, our feelings come from. Responses from this part of our brain are based on memory. And there's one technical term we teach, which is kind of here in the middle, the amygdala. Even kindergartners know this word, amygdala, and love learning it. What the amygdala's job is to do is to always be scanning for safety and threat. Am I safe? Am I not safe? Kind of like a smoke detector or a guard dog. When the amygdala scans the environment and picks up on cues, physical, external cues, and also how do I feel in my body cues of safety, the guard dog or the amygdala or the smoke detector stays quiet, and my thinking brain can stay online. So my thinking brain is on when that amygdala has said you're safe and I'll be quiet. But when the amygdala picks up on danger, oh no, I'm not safe. Something in my environment, internal or external, has sent a signal, you're not safe. That dog starts barking, the fire alarm goes off, the amygdala sounds the alarm, the thinking brain goes offline, and the survival brain takes over with our fight, flight, or freeze response. So the amygdala sends the message, thinking brain, I don't need math and writing right now. I don't need a lot of planning. I just need to get out of harm's way. So fight, flight, or freeze takes over. So I go into my survival brain. And this is all about keeping us alive and safe. Our survival brain keeps our heart beating, our respiration happening, digestion happening, basic life processes, as well as that automatic response to threat, fight, flight, or freeze. So when we get that amygdala to sound the fire alarm, our thinking brain might go offline a little bit or a lot. We're in our survival brain. Sometimes we call this flipping our lid. So things can cause us to flip our lid. Sometimes that amygdala picks up on danger, like I smell smoke, I hear a fire alarm, let's get out of this building right now. I go into flight, I run, right? So I might be jolted. That amygdala sends the signal because I need to get to safety. But sometimes the things that jolt us out of our thinking brain and into this survival state are not necessarily the immediate dangers. Sometimes our amygdala gets a little bit sensitive and sends messages that aren't always quite as accurate. So let's talk about things that might flip our lid. So everyday stressors can cause us to flip our lid and go into this survival brain. If I've had a lot of stress, kind of normal stuff, but now it's just like too many, too much, too fast coming in today, I might flip my lid. Anytime I feel threatened or unsafe, I might flip my lid. When I have conflict in relationships, that can definitely be a jolt to my nervous system and cause me to flip my lid. Reminders of past negative experiences. Maybe all it is somebody burned popcorn down at the end of the hall. It's not really a fire. We don't need to evacuate the building, but I smell the smoke of the burned popcorn. It reminds me of a time years ago I really was in a building that caught on fire and we had to evacuate. So I really flipped my lid, go into fight, flight, freeze because of this reminder of a past negative experience. We don't always know what jolts us, but we can often feel in our bodies a sense of, I don't feel good, I don't feel safe, I don't feel at ease, I don't know why, but something's off. So we don't always know what the jolt was, but we can still sometimes feel out of sorts, right? Okay, let's dive into what happens when we experience jolts. Jolts to the nervous system. A jolt, a threat, comes into our experience and can leave us amped up. That's your fight or flight, anxious, irritable, hyper vigilant, agitated, can't sleep, can't eat, can't settle, shaky, right? On the lookout for danger, amped up, too much energy, like the gas pedal got stuck to the floor, too much energy in my nervous system because of a jolt or a threat. So amped up. Fight or flight. I might be angry, loud voice, fussing at people. I might be in attack mode, attacking myself or others, or both. My thinking brain is offline, and language is in the thinking brain. So language, receptive and expressive language is here. When I flip my lid and go down here because I'm in a jolt, I can't really do communication, can't really process or speak or take in what you're saying, because communication is kind of temporarily gone offline because that's top brain. Or what it can happen to, and that's everybody. Everybody gets amped up at different times. This happens to all of us. The other thing that can happen to all of us and does is we can experience a jolt or a threat and end up shut down. And that's like gas pedal energy, but now brake pedal got stuck on top. I'm exhausted, I'm numb, I'm disconnected, I'm foggy. Everything feels heavy and hard. Just, you know, God, everything is such effort. If I'm even able to get out and about, I'm just going through the motions, but I might not even be out and about. Shutdown can look like can't get out of bed, can't get off my phone, zoned out, tired, foggy, numb. People are reaching out to connect with me, and I'm turning down people that are wanting to connect. Also, thinking brain is offline. So communication is also hard in these states, and making decisions is really hard when we're in that place. Super normal to bounce back and forth, being amped up or shut down, going back and forth when we have a lot of stress going on. Pretty normal. What we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. That's a Brene Brown quote. These states are just normal responses to stress, to an overwhelmed nervous system. And we don't need to feel shame for being human. So let's explore a little bit what we sometimes call the space between, not amped up or shut down, but rather in what we call the resilient zone. This image originally comes from the work of Peter Levine, who developed the somatic experiencing model. It's been used by many people since then to sort of conceptualize the nervous system. When we're in our resilient zone, we're neither amped up nor shut down. We're able to kind of ride the waves that come throughout our day. Maybe there's stress going on, there's your charge, but there's some release, gas pedal, brake pedal. Okay, just kind of the right amount of energy to get things done and have enough energy in our system, but not too much, not the amped up kind, the right amount, not too little, not shut down, calm enough, but not numb, right? So riding the waves throughout our day. When we're in our resilient zone, we're feeling pretty good in our mind, body, spirit. Feels good. Feels good to be in the zone. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect and nothing's not, nothing's going wrong. It could be that there's stress. It's those days where I'm just handling it. I got this. I can do this, right? It feels good. Feels okay. I can be creative and motivated. I can engage with others, friendly, thoughtful, connected conversations. Collaboration can happen, teamwork. We feel solid and sturdy, connected with others, and our thinking brains this time are online, right? Everything's working together. Survival, emotional, and thinking brain. Thinking's online, and I can communicate. So there's a lot of ways to define resilience, but for our purposes today, resilience is our ability to bounce back from hard things or to get through hard things and feel okay enough, right? Feel okay enough when things are stressful. It is not just being tougher or ignoring hard things. It is not pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and just pushing through no matter what. It's not absolving systems that keep people from being able to access the things that help them thrive and feel okay. It's not that. It's simply about finding that we can relatively tip the scale towards the positive, even in the presence of stress. There are resiliency tools we can learn and we can teach to help us get back into that resilient zone when we're finding ourselves jolted and amped up or shut down. Tools we can use to get back to the zone, tools we can use to broaden that zone so that we can ride bigger and bigger waves. And we teach these tools. There's lots of other things that help get us back into our zone and widen the zone. Things that you already, I'm sure, do to take care of yourself. We're going to look at a few specific tools that we teach as part of Resources for Resilience. In the longer workshops that we teach, we learn all these tools here: sense in, connect, resource, redirect, highlight, and restore. In this quick short video, we're just going to look at some rapid resets today, but please know that we have lots more tools. They're all nervous system based, mind body tools that anybody can learn, anybody can teach and use relatively quickly in the moment to help us move through our day with more ease, in our zone, feeling okay, even when there's stress around. And the same exact tools I use on myself to manage my own stress, I can share with others. So please think of joining us or inviting us to do a longer workshop or training with your teams or your groups or your communities. We would love that, but today we're just going to look at some rapid resets in the interest of time. Rapid reset tools. There's 8 of them total. We're going to, I think, do 3 of them today. So when we get jolted, when those stressors come in, either ones we can name, I know exactly what the stressor was today, I know exactly what jolted me, or I don't even know. I'm just out of my zone. I don't feel good. I feel agitated. I don't even really know why. Whether I know or I don't know, we can use tools to help regulate and settle our nervous system back to our zone. But when we get these jolts, we get this big energy that comes in. We don't want that energy to get stuck. We want to move it on through. And there's ways we can get rid of stress energy. The two people in this photograph, which I love, are doing one of the rapid resets, we call them. They're doing what we call heavy work. By lifting these heavy wheelbarrows, they are moving big energy through and out of their body. They're also connecting, which is another resiliency tool we would teach in a longer workshop. But they are doing heavy work. They're getting their whole musculoskeletal system involved and pushing this dirt around, and it helps unstick big energy. Think about if you feel better during or after you vacuum, dig, sweep, lift heavy things, carry stuff. Often we feel better if we've got a lot of stress, we do heavy work, it can help move that stress through. We're going to look at a couple more rapid resets, but before we want to do that, I just want to mention that as helpers, which I know everybody watching this video is a helper in probably multiple ways, we often have information we want to share with folks. But remember, language is in my top brain, is in my thinking brain. So if I'm talking to somebody and I have great resources and ways I want to share and help, but their brain is offline right now, they have flipped their lid, I'm talking to them with the greatest solution in the world. What do I sound like? Want, right? What I'm saying is not going to get through if they're down here in their fight, flight, freeze, amped up, shut down survival brain, right? First, I need to help them know from their survival brains first that they're safe enough. When that lower part gets the message, I'm safe enough, then the thinking brain can come back, and then we can talk, plan, problem solve, share resources, figure out what to do next. But I got to first communicate safety down here to the survival brain before I go in to talk, right? So how do I do that? We communicate safety to the survival brain, which remember doesn't do language. Language is up here. We communicate safety to the survival brain through physical cues, physical things we can notice, external and internal inside our bodies, that tell us we're safe. Physical cues of safety to get that message. You're safe enough. Dog, little dog, it's just the mailman. It's just the mailman, right? Physical cues of safety. So rapid resets help us create, notice, and kind of hone in on physical cues of safety to get that survival brain settled, quiet. Just the mailman, thinking brain can come back. It was just popcorn. It's not a fire. Turn off the fire alarm, right? Don't need it right now. We're going to look at these and actually practice these together in just a second. But when we do, for example, a rapid reset, or in the longer trainings, any of the other resiliency tools that we have, when we can notice that they elicit positive physical sensations, or at least neutral, we want to slow down and really notice how they make us feel physically. For example, I do a rapid reset, I do that heavy work, and my breathing gets bigger. Or my muscles feel warm and strong. Or I do heavy work and I notice a release from the tension. Or I do the heavy work and I notice I was kind of cold and tight feeling, and now I'm warm and loose feeling. So I start to notice physical sensations when they're positive, or at least decent, neutral, better than tight, tense, and icky. Slow it down and really notice for at least 20 seconds the positive physical feeling, right? Okay. More room to breathe. Jaw just released. Energy. I have just the right amount of energy right now. Maybe my stomach kind of was tight and now it feels more settled, right? Notice for 20 seconds. We need 20 seconds to really get that message to the survival brain. You're safe right now. You're safe enough right now. Fight, flight, freeze. You don't need it. You don't need fight, flight, or freeze to keep you safe right now. You're safe enough. Thinking brain can come back. So at least 20 seconds to get that message through. Okay, rapid resets. We can use them on ourselves when we feel like our lid is either a little bit flipped or a lot flipped. When we're starting to think, am I amped up? How do I know? I think I'm amped up. Ugh. I don't want to make this phone call right now. It's not going to go well if I make a phone call while I'm amped up. So start to notice, am I in my zone or not? What does it feel like? Am I amped up or shut down? How do I know if I'm not in my zone? I want to do a rapid reset on myself and or help others. I'm working with a student. They're out of their zone. I can tell because of the way their body's moving and maybe the way they're kind of talking under their breath. I'm going to use a tool with them. We're going to do it together. So these are quick little things we can do to calm down quickly when we're out of balance. They're often things we do anyway, and you'll see in a second, like the heavy work, we might clean the house anyway. We're going to boost the impact of the tool by really noticing during the tool the physical cues of safety, the physical sensations, the physical feelings that feel kind of okay or a lot better than tight, tense, and icky physically. So we're really going to get curious and notice. Okay, let's do this one together, orienting. So when we orient, what we're going to do is we're going to look around our space. Don't rush. Kind of look straight ahead and kind of slowly look over one shoulder. Let's do kind of a color thing. Pick your favorite color. Mine's blue. I'm going to look for everything blue in this room. I'm going to kind of take note of everything blue on this side. And if it's available to me, I'm going to twist and turn my whole body, head, neck, even eyes. Look over my left sides of my eyes. There's more blue, more blue. I notice I kind of want to stretch and move when I do that. So I'm going to listen to my body and do that. And I'm going to look this way for anything blue. Orienting to safety. I'm seeing things that are blue. What I'm not seeing is anything dangerous. Right now in this moment, I'm safe. So that amygdala is getting sent messages this way and that, cues of safety. As I do my twisting, turning, I also notice I just took a deep breath. I felt some tightness in my temples and that went away. Just noticing how I feel physically, and if it feels better, give it 20 seconds to kind of soak in and savor it. I feel more settled when I do my twisting, turning, and I'm sending the message to that brain, you're safe right now. Another one, heavy work we looked at, tapping. Let's do this one. Cross your arms at whatever height feels good and slowly tap or quickly tap, side to side, whatever speed you like. So again, and let's just do this while I'm talking. A lot of these things, as I mentioned, we do naturally. We rock babies. We've been rocking babies since time began, right? It helps babies' nervous system settle, right? Often we kind of sway without even knowing we're doing it when we're maybe a little nervous or bored. Some of us might kind of sway. We can boost the impact of this kind of side-to-side movement by really noticing how we feel physically. Notice our breathing. Notice our muscles. Notice tension or relaxation as we tap. Just get curious and notice. So I'm noticing a lot of things, feel more relaxed as I did that. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up. I just have a couple more minutes. Those are just a few quick, simple, rapid reset tools. We have about 6 more rapid resets, taking a sip of water, taking a walk, pushing against a wall or down on a table, singing, humming, lots of them. And then we have those other tools I showed you. So these they all come back to kind of notice the body settle or feel a more energy in a good way, or a settling if there was too much energy, awareness. I think I'm back in my zone. I was starting to flip. Now I'm back, right? Now I can make that phone call that was going to be hard. Or now I can sit with you and let's make a plan and problem solve something together that was going to be tricky. We can't take away all the stress of the world. Goodness knows there's a lot of stress in the world right now. It is February 12th, 2025. We need to be connected. We need to be as resilient as we can be in these hard times. So we want to use tools with ourselves and share with each other so we can continue to ride the waves and show up for each other, for ourselves, for those around us. So by using these tools, we can experience better days. And this is, again, just the very beginning of more things that we can offer. So this is our website, and this is our email. If you go to our website, we're also on these social media links. You can find out about upcoming workshops, or just reach out to us at this email and say, I want more training. Can you come? We've trained virtually and in person, whatever works for you. And what else do I want to say? I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a great follow-up discussion. Our wonderful Kat Parker is going to be there for that part of this little workshop when you have your follow-up discussion. And I'm not going to go through all this, but I just want you to see quickly where all this information comes from. Lots and lots and lots of references, lots of studies and research and thought leaders that we have pulled from to create this curriculum. The full curriculum, the longest training is the 2-day Reconnect for Resilience training. All these people, published authors, therapists, neurophysiologists, public health people, of all kinds, faith community leaders, spiritual leaders, scientists of all kinds have informed what we just shared. So this is just, I mean, there they are. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I am DuPre Rogers with Resources for Resilience, and we hope to see you again in the future. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Katharine Manning, and I am here today to talk to you about trauma-informed leadership. Before I begin, let me tell you just a little bit about who I am and how I came to be talking to you about this subject. I'm a lawyer, but as a lawyer, I've spent most of my career working with victims of crime. I started off back in college doing hotline work. I did domestic violence and rape crisis work. It was that work that really pushed me to go to law school. And after law school, I ended up at the U.S. Department of Justice, where I spent 15 years as a senior attorney advisor on victims' rights. In that role, I advised on victim issues in a wide array of cases, anything from huge fraud cases to terrorism, human trafficking, child exploitation. Through all those years and all those different cases, a couple of things started to become clear to me. One was that people didn't need different things based on what they were a victim of. It wasn't like the way that we would support a victim of identity theft was all that different than the way we would support a victim of terrorism. Everybody needed to be acknowledged. Everybody needed some information about what was happening in the case. They needed to feel like they had a voice in what was going on, and they needed resources, some help getting back on their feet. Obviously, everybody's story is unique, and I'm not saying that what happens to one person is the same as what happens to another, but the ways that we in the Justice Department were supporting them in our work were remarkably similar. And it turns out that when we are going through periods of trauma or distress, we all kind of need the same things. And so that was really my second big revelation, that it wasn't just the victims in our cases who needed all of those things that we were sharing. It was all of us too. It was my colleagues, it was my supervisor, my employees, it was me. Sometimes for reasons that were work related, like working on a particularly difficult matter. Sometimes just for life reasons. We all go through time periods where we're struggling. If somebody's going through a divorce or caring for a sick loved one, I realized that these same ways we were supporting the victims were really, really helpful in supporting our colleagues as well. And then I also started to understand that when we have the skills to provide that kind of support that people really need at their hardest moments, that it had a huge impact on three things. One was individual well-being, like people healed faster, they were able to kind of get through the difficult time a little bit healthier. Two was trust between colleagues, because when you show up for somebody during their hardest moments, that's where you really see trust and bonding kind of skyrocket. And then the third thing was our mission, our kind of ability to do our jobs. Because if you have those things, if you have workforce well-being and trust, turns out all the other things are a lot easier. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. It's how do we help build the kind of workplace where people are able to support each other during hard times, where they come together instead of falling apart. Let's talk now about the three pillars of trauma-informed leadership. For those who are versed in such things, these are sort of a distillation of the 6 principles of trauma-informed care by the CDC and SAMHSA. The three pillars are number 1, acknowledgement. That's creating the environment where people know they will be heard. 2 is support. That's making sure people know that they can get help when they need it. And 3 is trust, creating an environment where people know that they will be treated fairly. A key piece of acknowledgement when it comes to creating a trauma-informed workplace is making sure that everybody has the skills to support somebody who's experiencing trauma or distress. It sounds easy and it's really not. It can be hard. I mean, as I said, I've worked with crime victims for, gosh, over 30 years now, and I still will sometimes have conversations with people where I just freeze and I don't know what to say, and I know how hard it can be. Because of that, I'm going to teach you right now the laser technique. These are the 5 steps to a compassionate response to trauma on the job. This is from my book, The Empathetic Workplace. Um, I'm going to go over it with you very quickly, but if you want more on this, the book is out there and it goes into a lot more detail on all of these steps. So the point of the laser technique is to give you a map to follow. If somebody comes to you at work and they're experiencing something difficult, say, somebody knocks on your office door and says, do you have a minute? There's something I need to let you know about. The laser technique will help you get through that conversation in a way that doesn't make it worse, hopefully makes it better, and also protects you along the way. So step 1 is listen. This is active listening. This means creating the circumstances where the person feels comfortable opening up. So give them your full attention, shut down other work, ask questions, open-ended questions to let them know that it's okay to continue. Things like, what happened next? How did you feel then? Watch your body language. It's really common when we're in sort of a stressful conversation that we will unconsciously adopt a more defensive stance, like lean back. Shoulders hunched, arms crossed. What you want is open, neutral posture facing them head on. The next step is acknowledge. So this is the step I think that is most often missed. And when it gets missed, that's usually when the conversation seems to be going off the rails. Like if the person is getting more upset, it's usually because the person needs more acknowledgement than they're getting. So here's how it works. You've done a great job all the way through as they're telling you what they need to tell you. But the whole time they're talking, you're thinking, oh, I know exactly what you need to do. And so as soon as they finish, you say, oh, I know exactly what you need to do. Um, you maybe do. Maybe you have great ideas for what they can do or what resource they can use, and that's phenomenal, but not yet. They really can't hear you until they know that you heard them. You know that you heard them, but they don't know it until you acknowledge. Acknowledgement is really, really simple, but it's pivotal to the whole conversation. Acknowledgement sounds like, thank you for sharing that. or thank you for letting me know, or that sounds really hard or scary or upsetting or whatever it sincerely sounds to you, or I'm sorry about everything you're going through right now. Just something that lets them know that you heard them. What you want to avoid are responses that either deny or distract from what they've just said. Denial is something like, oh, I'm sure it's all going to work out fine. Distraction is something like, my brother went through something similar and he's just fine. Let me tell you all about him now. Again, you listen and then you acknowledge. You let them know that you heard them. Thanks for sharing is a great acknowledgement. Okay, the next one is share. Step 3 is share. And this is about sharing information with the person to help them regain a sense of control in a situation that feels really out of control. This step is there because one of the things I saw again and again in my work with crime victims was everybody craved information. Like they wanted to know what happened next, who knew what when. And it seemed almost insatiable. It was like the more we shared, they still wanted more. It didn't seem like we could ever share enough information. And what I finally realized is that when you're going through a time period where it feels like your world has been turned upside down, one of the things that's really hard about that is the loss of control. You were doing everything right. You were, I don't know, just driving home from work on a regular day and you were in a car accident. You spend the next 6 weeks in the hospital and you think, but I had plans and I didn't do anything wrong. And why did this happen to me? Remember, knowledge is power. And there's this great quote by John F. Kennedy where he says, in times of turmoil and turbulence, it's more true than ever that knowledge is power. It's when we really, really crave information. So that's what this step is about, is sharing information that will help the person make sense of their situation. What can we share? Facts are great if we have any facts about it. If there's something like an incident of workplace violence or maybe a data breach, something like that. Everybody's going to want to know what happened. So you share what information, factual information you have about that. Sometimes you don't know any facts though, but that doesn't mean you have nothing to share. You also can share process information. This is what happens next. This is where you go to file a complaint. Those kinds of process pieces of information are also really helpful to people. In addition, think about sharing values information. That's things like, we take these issues very seriously, or even I take these issues very seriously. It can be your organization's values or even your own personal values. And then finally, even being upfront about what you don't know is actually sharing information with them. Like, I actually don't know how complaints are filed, but let me see what I can find out. That's useful information for people to have. It shows you're not hiding the ball. All right, so those were the first 3 steps: listen, acknowledge, share. Step 4 is empower. This step, I think, is as important for us as the listeners as it is for the person who's going through a period of trauma or distress. A lot of us are fixers. You see somebody who's struggling and you just want to make it better for them. You want to kind of take over. This step reminds you that they have their own path to walk and you can't walk it for them. You have to let them make the decisions about what they want to do next. Even if you disagree with that or you think you have a better idea, trust me, they know better than you do what is the appropriate next steps for them. So what we can do is empower them, right? What we want to do is give them some tools to take with them as they're walking this path. So a great place to start is, how can I help? Or what do you need? And then try to give them that kind of support. It's also worthwhile to know about resources that are available. So I hope all of you know about 988, which in the US and Canada is a national mental health crisis line. It's available by phone or text, English, Spanish, 24 hours a day. 211 is also a great resource in most major US cities. It connects you to local resources. So maybe the person needs something that you don't know anything about, like maybe they need elder care or addiction support. If you give them 211, they can find local resources available. I also hope you know about the resources available in your organization. I'm sure there are phenomenal resources for mental health and flexible work and probably lots of great security options too. Make sure that you know about some of those so that you're able to pass them along to people when they need them. The final step is R for return, and that is twofold. It's both literally a return to the person to check in on them later, ask how they're doing, show them that you continue to be a source of support. But also importantly, it's a return to ourselves, a recognition that supporting others takes a toll on us. And so we have to be taking steps to take care of ourselves as well. Now you know how to respond with compassion and skill when somebody comes to you with something they're struggling with. But how do we make sure that there's room for that conversation to happen in the first place? Like, let me ask you this. Does this sound familiar? That when people come to see you at work, the first words out of their mouths are, "I'm so sorry to interrupt. I know how busy you are." Does that sound a little bit familiar to you? If so, it is possible that you have such an air of busyness around you that it's hard for people even to come near you, let alone open up about what it is that they're facing. All of us need to get a little bit better at mastering the art of the quick check-in. Um, what I advise is checking in on your colleagues roughly once a week. The reason I give that number is because there was a study that found that psychological safety is highest on teams where supervisors check in with their direct reports at least once a week. I don't think it's only supervisors who should be checking in on their direct reports, though. I think we all should be doing a better job of checking in on each other. So, what I advise is first off, just make a list of the people on your team that you want to be checking in on. And maybe you say, I mean, there's only 5 of us on the team. I think I can remember all 4 of those names. Um, and that's true, but also I still think it's worthwhile to make the list. And here's why. All of us tend to gravitate more towards some people than others. Maybe because we have a similar background to them, or because they're really funny, or maybe they're a good listener. The list keeps you honest. If you're trying to check in with all 4 people at least once a week and you make it to Thursday and 3 of them you've talked to a bunch, but that fourth one you just kind of can't quite get to, the list makes sure that you get there as well because the person that you are not gravitating to, probably others aren't as well, and that person might be the one who most needs that check-in. The next thing is calendar it. And this might be just me because I'm like so tethered to my calendar. I have like the electronic calendar and the wall calendar and the paper calendar. I have endless to-do lists and sticker charts and all of those things. I love all that stuff. So to me, if it's on the calendar, I'm going to do it because it feels like work. This is work. Part of your job is to create the kind of workplace environment where people are able to thrive. So build in time for it. You don't have to time block it like I do, unless that's something that works for you, but have some time set aside for it. Maybe for you, it's first thing in the morning or every Friday after lunch or something. Just have a little bit of time that you set aside for it. In terms of how to do the quick check-in, it's just an easy, open-ended question. How are you? How was your weekend? In particular, if you know something about them, not work-related, but not overly personal, like how did soccer go this weekend is even better than how was your weekend because it shows you know something about them. And also make sure you're listening. I spoke with one guy who said, yeah, my boss does those check-ins, but it's like he asked the question and you can almost see the mental like check mark he just gave himself, and his eyes are glassy and he's clearly thinking about something else. So make sure you're not only asking the question, but actually listening to the response, engaging with the person, or you're really losing the benefit of it. Okay, and then the final thing is know when you need more than a quick check-in. This one is a little hard for me because I am so tethered to my to-do list and agenda and calendar. But I will tell you that I have benefited myself from people who were willing to give me their time when I needed it. So when my son was a baby, he was in daycare at the Justice Department's daycare center, which is called Just Us Kids because they all have these funny names. So he was at Just Us Kids, and one morning I dropped him off, and I went and got my cup of tea, and I sat in my coworker's office, which is my practice at the time, and I sat down, and she just kind of looked at me, and she said, "How are you?" And I just burst into tears. I just started to cry. Daycare can be hard on new parents. And she was so great. She didn't tell me what to do or how to think about it. She just kind of handed me a tissue, let me cry until I felt a little bit better and I could go back to work, and so could she. That son who I dropped off that morning, he's 18 years old now. I can't tell you a single thing I worked on that whole year, but I remember that conversation. Those moments when we really show up for people when they need us, those are the things that will last in our memories and theirs forever. So be willing to give the time to it when somebody really needs you. The second pillar of trauma-informed leadership is support. Sometimes what people need is actual tangible support, like mental health services or security information or flexible work options. A myriad of different things can really make a huge difference in people being able to continue to work and to heal during a difficult time. First off, let's make sure that the policies that people need are available to them. Sometimes what people need is mental health support. So, do you have an EAP or some other kind of mental health service available to your folks? Maybe they need security options or flexible work or any kind of a myriad of different resources that can really help people in their time of need. So let's make sure that those policies exist, that we're continuing to update them. New types of resources are available all the time. As we are updating them, let's make sure that we're seeking input from the people who'd be most likely to use those services. And also let's think about ways to read more broadly access to those services. Sometimes what we need is not some new third-party vendor to come in and offer a new service. It's just to take what already exists and read it more broadly so it covers more people in more situations. And then importantly, we need to make sure people know that those resources exist. That's honestly the biggest barrier to people accessing the resources that is they don't even know about them. So we have to talk about those policies and those resources, and we need to do it widely and frequently. So imagine, for instance, that your workplace has some great policy that supports people who are experiencing violence in their intimate relationship, right? Intimate partner violence. You have no idea who might need that, right? Of course, how would you know? So you have to make sure everybody knows about it. And then you have to make sure that you talk about it again and again. So you talk about it widely, but also frequently. Because maybe the first time it's rolled out, you do it with great fanfare and everybody hears about it, but it goes right over somebody's head because she doesn't need it then. But boy, 18 months later, she really, really does. But by then, she's forgotten that it even exists. So you have to talk about those resources both widely and frequently. This is where those awareness months can be really helpful. So, like October is Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. That's a great time to be like, hey, everybody, hope you know we have this great resource available. Finally, practice noisy self-care. Self-care is really important, but the point I'm making here is slightly different, which is we need to talk about our self-care. Because when we do, we make it okay for everybody else to engage in self-care as well. Just as an example, imagine that I said to you, hey, we have a phenomenal EAP program. They offer free and confidential counseling. I hope you'll reach out if you could use some support. And then imagine I say on the other hand, hey, we've got a phenomenal EAP program. They offer free and confidential counseling. It really helped me when I needed it. And I hope you'll reach out if you could use some support. Do you hear that difference? Like when I say that second one, it makes it so much easier for everybody else to access that resource as well. So talk about the things that you do to take care of yourself. Talk about you downloaded the new wellness app that work offered, or you've started doing meditation every morning, or you went back to therapy this year. It's making a big difference in your life. Talk about the ways that you are taking care of yourself because that's how you make a workplace culture where people know that that is not just permitted, but actually encouraged, that we want that in this workplace. The third pillar of trauma-informed leadership is trust, creating an environment where people know that they'll be treated fairly. To me, trust always comes down to the three C's: clarity, consistency, and choice. First, clarity. We're clear about our needs, our expectations, our values, our timelines. So many challenges can be mitigated if we're just a little bit more upfront about the things that we need. There's an example I really love from a book I read that's called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's by a guy who was the manager of a fancy restaurant in New York. And the example he gave is imagine a server comes into work and her shirt is kind of wrinkled. And the manager sees that the shirt is wrinkled, but thinks, I don't want to be a nag. I'm not that guy. I'm just going to let it go. And then the next day she shows up and her shirt is wrinkled. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And he keeps not saying anything. And meanwhile, though, he's getting more and more frustrated, right? Like, how come she doesn't understand that we're, a like well-established kind of fancy place? Everybody here has their shirts ironed. How come, she can't manage it and everybody else can? He's kind of telling himself this whole story about it. And eventually he blows up at her and she says, but if this was a problem, why didn't you tell me from the first place? Um, we don't want to play gotcha, right? Like we want people to understand what it is that we actually need. And so if there is a problem, let's raise it earlier. For instance, if the manager had just said to her from the beginning, hey, great to see you, but your shirt's looking a little rough. You want to head upstairs and iron it real quick before your shift, would have been so much easier, right? So let's be clear about our expectations and our needs. Maybe you're asking for something from a colleague. Say there's two pieces of information you need. Are you clear about when you need that? Like maybe you have in your head the end of the day, but the person, you haven't said that to them. So they're like, well, it's going on the bottom of the list, right? You have to explain to them when you need it. Maybe one of them you need by the end of the day. The other one actually is fine. Next week even is okay. Make sure that they understand those things. Don't operate from the assumption that everybody understands the things that you're not stating. Be clear about your needs, your expectations, and also be consistent. So clarity is about everybody knows what the rules are. Consistency means we're consistent in our application of those rules. So we're not saying that everybody has to be signed on at work by 9 a.m. and we enforce that for everybody except like our favorite employee or like except for us, right? If we're saying this is the rule, we really need to enforce that rule consistently across the board or have a very good reason why we're not. Maybe it's everybody has to sign on by 9 a.m. unless they've put in leave or unless there's an accommodation or, a shifted work schedule. Like be clear about what are the rules and then consistent in their application, including the caveats for why that might not be exactly the same, but we know everybody understands the rules and why it's different from person to person. And then finally, choice. So within that framework of clarity and consistency, we provide people as much choice as we can. We want people to have autonomy over the decisions that affect their lives. So telework is an easy option. Maybe you say everybody has to be in the office 2 days a week. Does it matter? Do you care which 2 days they are? Maybe you do, but if not, maybe let people choose because it could make a big difference in somebody's life. Maybe it means they can continue seeing the therapist who's made a big difference for them over the last year. Um, Make sure that we're not doing rules for rules' sake, and wherever possible, give people discretion so that they can order their lives in the way that works most effectively for them. The final piece of this third pillar on trust is live your values. If you say, for instance, that you value psychological safety or respect or inclusion, and you are ignoring the screamer down the hall, those are not your values, and everybody knows it. We have to be willing to take action to enforce our values, or they're not worth very much to begin with. So think about what is the behavior that you have been letting slide. Maybe it's a gallows humor or a dig at a colleague. Maybe it's an off-color remark. Those actions or comments that you are ignoring, it's not just that they are going to continue if you don't say something, they're actually going to expand. There was a study that was done where they took business school students, so, pretty ambitious type A kind of people, and they put them in groups and said, you're going to do a project together, which is a very common thing for business school students to do. But unbeknownst to them, in every group, on every team, there was an actor whose job it was just to be kind of a jerk, to show up late, to make fun of people for sharing their ideas, to refuse to take any responsibility. Within a day, everybody was mirroring the jerk. Isn't that awful? Bad behavior is contagious in a way that good behavior sadly is not. So think hard about what is the behavior that you're allowing to go on. Because if it's not in alignment with the kind of workplace culture that you want to build, it's important to speak up, to take some action, because it really is your responsibility, all of our responsibility, to build the kind of workplace culture that we want to have. All right, my friends, those are the 3 pillars of trauma-informed leadership. Number 1, acknowledgement, creating the sense that people will feel heard in the environment. 2 is support, that they can get help when they need it. And 3 is trust, that they know that they'll be treated fairly. I hope this has been helpful to you and that you've been able to come up with some good tips and tools to help you create a trauma-informed working environment. If you have any questions, please reach out. You see my email address there and all the social media ways to stay in touch with me. In addition, every Thursday, I send out a text message that's just about empathy and leadership and resilience and all these topics. So if that's interesting to you, feel free to join my text list. It's just a free thing I do for anybody who's been in training with me. You can access the text list by either texting that word Blackbird to that phone number, or if you scan that QR code, it'll pull up a text and you just hit send. In addition, you see my book there, The Empathetic Workplace. If you want to delve deeper into the laser technique, that is where you go for that. One final thing I wanted to say, which is, the word that you're supposed to text to join my text list is the word Blackbird. And the reason it's the word Blackbird is because that's my company name. And the reason it's my company name is because of that old Beatles song, Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night. I love that song, and in particular, I love the line, "Take these broken wings and learn to fly." I love that line because it acknowledges that when we go through something hard, we are changed by it. We aren't the same afterward as we were before. We've certainly been through a lot in recent years, and we aren't the same as we were before. We are different people now than we used to be. But that doesn't mean we can't go on to do incredible things. And the way to do that is together. So thank you so much for spending this time with me, thinking about how to build a trauma-informed working environment, for all the ways that you are taking care of the people around you, and importantly, the ways you're taking care of yourself too. Thank you.